There are some fans who might find a hint of irony in the idea that Manchester City's crowning jewel could be lured away by the promise of riches elsewhere. City have long been something of a cash-rich bogeyman for clubs lower down the ladder, scared that the Premier League's dominant force might turn their gaze to their most prized talents and opening up their enviable coffers. That theory more than overlooks the unbelievable wealth of coaching talent, infrastructure, culture and growing history in recent years, but there is no denying that most clubs struggle to compete with the citizens. Therefore, the notion that Kevin De Bruyne might pursue a move to the Saudi Pro League for incredible money might elicit a smirk or two. It shouldn't really come as a surprise either. We said last summer that Saudi Arabia would struggle to lure players across the Mediterranean Sea with the promise of riches alone, and look what happened. Neymar, Riyad Mahrez, Kalidou Koulibaly, N'Golo Kante, Karim Benzema, Sergei Milinkovic-Savic, genuine top Champions League players all made the switch. Would De Bruyne really be a shock addition? City of course have plenty of money. The Belgian is already on around £1. 73 meters a month, but they also have a structure in place. De Bruyne might be at the top of that structure, but it is a difficult ecosystem to change just for one player. If the club were to allow one player a pay rise to compete with what he might be offered by Al Ittihad, you can imagine there might be a few knocks on the manager's door asking for something similar. So yes, there is money, but there is also a dressing room to manage. That is by the by, though. The real question is, why would De Bruyne want to go to Al Ittihad, if he is more or less at the top of the football pyramid as the star in the best side on the planet? There are two elements to this question: his playing career and his personal life. Let's deal with the former first, and find out if he still is the crown jewel of Guardiola's crown. De Bruyne is a generational talent, arguably one of the finest attacking midfielders of all time and one of the Premier League's greatest ever players. At his peak, he was regularly hitting double figures for both goals and assists in the league alone. His best tally came in 2019-20 with 13 goals and 20 assists, and he only had to look at a pitch for a split second to map out the entire game. He was unplayable, and the closest thing we ever got to seeing Lionel Messi on these shores. But the key word there is peak. At 33, heading into the 2024-25 season, his peak is either fast diminishing or already over. That's not to say that his passing ability is waning, or his dead ball ability failing at all, but it is a simple fact of biology. He will likely only deteriorate physically from here on in. You might point at Cristiano Ronaldo as a potential example to follow and how he has maintained his physicality and is continuing to thrive in the Saudi Pro League. True, H is a fine specimen and a great role model for staying at peak fitness in your later career, but watch any of Portugal's outings at the Euros, and the idea that translates to world-beating form and ability comes tumbling down. In Saudi Arabia, Ronaldo is able to feel like the footballing god he once was, scoring 35 goals in 31 games last term, even though he simply would not be able to compete at the same level in Europe. Perhaps De Bruyne might want something similar. With Phil Foden now hurtling towards his own prime at an alarming rate, Bernardo Silva still the world's most underrated player, and Rodri marshalling the midfield, City managed to win the league with De Bruyne starting fewer than half the games. Perhaps City might be all right without the Belgian should he decide to leave. Make no mistake, they are not better off without him at all, but they still have a side that can win a league if he should decide to leave. Rodri is arguably the most important midfielder at the club, while Foden is the future of the club and Erling Haaland is, well, Erling Haaland. There are now other players on whom the pressure can lie, not that the Belgian doesn't still shoulder some of it himself. I will keep underlining it, but De Bruyne is a truly unbelievable footballer. However, there is an argument that he is already on the decline, not because of his abilities, but his body letting him down, unable to live up to the quality player he is. Last season the Belgian missed 41 games for club and country. That simply isn't good enough for a team looking to play around 70 games a season these days. Your best player can't be someone you struggle to get on the pitch. The previous season he was forced off in the Champions League final, the most important game in City's history, with an injury. Since joining City he has suffered 12 muscular problems, including 4 hamstring injuries which we all know usually continue to plague a career with regularity. Like Ronaldo, De Bruyne struggled at the Euros and was unable to inspire a last great hurrah out of Belgians' quickly tarnishing golden era. It feels, and I would be very happy to be proven wrong, that this great midfielder's career is beginning its descent from the top. Sadly, the numbers back this up. 2019-20 was in many ways the gold standard of any player's career, and his numbers have fallen some way short since then. It would be harsh to compare that to his most recent campaign, in which he struggled with fitness, so for argument's sake let's run a comparison with 2022-23. The fact remains that even 2 campaigns ago he was down in terms of minutes, 2798 versus 2425, tackles per 90, 1. 45 versus 1, interceptions per 90, 0.58 vs 0.33, duels 1, 4.44 vs 3.93, and distance covered per 90, 11. 4 kilometers versus 10.9 kilometers, compared to 2019-20. Granted, positionally Guardiola has tweaked his system so De Bruyne stays a little higher up the field where he is at his most lethal, and he was actually more successful in the duel in 2022-23 than 2019-20, 48. 6% success versus 47.4, but there are signs that a drop-off is fast approaching. Numbers never tell the whole picture, but they do at least hint at part of one. And then there is his personal life. What impact would a move to Saudi Arabia have on his life, and why would he be keen to undertake such a shake-up? The chance to live in a new country, explore a new culture and experience a way of life different to your own is one that most people take up with relish, and rightly so. Traveling the world is a well-trodden path to personal enrichment and development, and the opportunity to do so for a footballer should not be understated. De Bruyne has already noted that his son knows nothing but England. Perhaps he wants his children to have greater experience of the world.